Good morning and welcome to the Fusionary Health podcast. I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta, and this is the podcast dedicating to recalibrating your health every day. My goal is to help you wake up each day energized by addressing root causes and giving you new approaches to preventive health. The more we know about integrative health, the more empowered we are in building the vibrant health we want. Welcome to the Fusionary Health podcast, where today I have a very special guest with us, Sandra Scheinbaum. She is in charge of the health coaching program under the umbrella of IFM, where they're creating certified health coaches who can help jump into our health with us, partner alongside us, and help us achieve our health goals. So welcome, Sandra.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. I loved meeting with you, and I loved understanding from you when we met at a conference last year how we can partner with health coaching and use it to really achieve our health goals at a deeper level. So I wanted to start out by sharing that I used to work at Canyon Ranch in the Berkshires when Dr. Mark Hyman was there. And so I met him at the very beginning of my career into wellness and health. I remember sitting in on the lectures there. I was program coordinating, so I would book patients to go see him. And I just remember his wisdom and his patience and his love that he always expressed for everyone. And then as soon as I was there, he wrote his book, Ultra Prevention. I read it and I was like, he's right. Gluten is the culprit for so many of us. He's such a pioneer. And so will you share a little bit about him and IFM, which most people might not realize, the Institute for Functional Medicine, and then under that, how you created this health coaching certification program?
Sure. So I met Mark Hyman it was about, I think it was in 2008 or 2009. I had taken a food as medicine course through Jim Gordon's program, Center for Mind Body Medicine. And that was my first introduction to functional medicine, and really thought this was transformational. And what I chose to do was go through the training program at IFM. And this was starting in like 2010 or so. And I was in their first class of practitioners to be certified, which for me was, I didn't think I would be accepted because you had to petition, because I was a psychologist. And I was in that box when they checked, your fields of study, your profession. I was the other way at the bottom. One hand got raised and that was me. And I think I still may be the only, or maybe one other psychologist certified in functional medicine, because they've tightened up now. It's really more for practitioners. But this idea that it's root cause medicine. And what really resonated with me is there was a cartoon that was often shown at lectures. And it was a cartoon of a bunch of people. They were mopping up the floor in one corner of the room because the room was flooded. And so they had mops, each person had a mop, and they were trying to sop up the water. And what they didn't, they were looking down. They weren't looking up at the sink. And if they looked up at the sink, they would have seen that the faucet was on. So the sink was overflowing and the water was coming down to the floor. It was a perfect representation of the difference between functional medicine and conventional acute care medicine. And that is, those doctors are mopping up the floor, trying to remedy the symptoms, but they're looking downstream. They're never looking upstream at the root cause. And often the root cause, it's inflammation, oxidative stress. What's it tied to? It's tied to our lifestyle. And so that is what functional medicine is about. And it's remarkably effective when there are health coaches, because the health coaches are those people who are specifically trained in helping people change their lifestyle. So you could know lifestyle medicine backwards and forwards, but that's still giving people advice. We have an abundance of advice, and often it's conflicting and confusing. Health coaches help people sort that out, and they help people become empowered to actually use that advice and to succeed. And so the process was I had been a psychologist for many, many years, and I was a health psychologist. And I saw lots and lots of people in my career who had physical conditions like migraine headaches, for example. And we would use mind-body medicine strategies, and they would get better. And I also integrated that with techniques from positive psychology and cognitive behavior therapy, where you're looking at changing your thinking from less catastrophic to more realistic thinking. And so putting that all together, I created this health coach program and chose to partner with IFM because they had wanted to start a program to train health coaches. The right person, they said, hadn't come along. And so they were very excited. And the idea is a collaborative care model. So they train the practitioners. We train people to become health coaches. And often many practitioners are taking our training because they want to learn coaching skills, or perhaps they want to retire their medical practice and just be a coach.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, often people they're thinking about their future self, and they're thinking, do I really want to be practicing medicine still 10, 20 years down the road, thinking about retiring, giving up their practice, and health coaching, I can still serve others in a very effective way, a very meaningful way. And I can have that mission in my life. And yet I can then do that work from anywhere because coaches are not licensed. They don't have the boundaries, the restrictions of state licensing, so they can coach anywhere in the world. And so that's often appealing for many practitioners.
Absolutely. You gain this freedom, you gain this mobility. You also have a different liability, right?
Yes, big difference.
You can jump into coaching and not have the MD like umbrella of all that stuff you have to be within, which can be pretty challenging nowadays because compliance within that, if you believe this way, but you have to comply this way, can be challenging, right?
Yeah. We have so many doctors who are enrolling to become health coaches. One, she's renowned over OBGYN, and she had left practicing medicine and is now a coach. And she's opening a clinic. In fact, her family trained to be coaches as well, and they are opening multidisciplinary clinic. And so she is utilizing the physicians in her practice, but she is the coach, and she's loving it, leading groups, for example. I know several other doctors as well. One board certified neurologist who trained to become a coach, and she is leading coaching groups. And if medical services are in order, well, she has her network of colleagues who are MDs.
So interesting. I would never have thought of that, but once you say it that way, it makes a lot of sense because there's this whole world where we want to teach what we want to teach, but we also as practitioners want freedom. And so a lot of people ask me, I teach Ayurveda, I teach circadian rhythm, I teach about inflammation, and my PhD was in turmeric. So my whole world is teaching on those topics, but I really love my freedom. I can teach anywhere. I can travel the country. I just spoke at IFM. So I wouldn't want to lose that and have to be tied geographically to one place. So my next question is, when it comes to IFM and functional medicine, when I teach Ayurveda, love partnering with functional medicine because they have this incredible toolkit, the diagnostics, the data on the patient, the understanding of what's going on. And I myself have gone to multiple functional medicine practitioners and I refer to them a lot. But, what I find so fascinating is, yes, the functional medicine doctor can tell you, hey, Shivani, here's your blood work. I can see all these things need to shift. Here's your stool test. I need you to do these things. Here's your DNA test, new homework. The thing is compliance. Even when you're obsessed with health, like I am, I even built an entire turmeric company. Like I'm obsessed. But even I find it hard sometimes to comply with the changes that are needed to achieve the goal. And my poor practitioner, I'm not going to go talk to her monthly. I told her team once, I need a monthly visit. Because if I'm not going to see her monthly, life gets so busy. I've got travel, I've got conferences, so I could forget the protocol and then get off track and thus not finish the protocol. So I remember I went back to her once and it was after a quarter. She's like, well, those supplements and everything weren't for you to sit on for like 6 months. That was a finish it in 30 days idea. So will you share from your perspective with the health coaching, why and how this idea of a health coach is so imperative? I see it because I see it as compliance. I see it as accountability. I see it as regular reminders and support that even I need. Because occasionally I will hire my own health coaches and say, hey, I am a busy entrepreneur. I'm a busy mom. I'm running at 100 miles an hour. Even I need reminders to do these things. So how have you seen that play a powerful role in people's lives?
Yeah, let me share an example, which is the randomized controlled trial that we did recently with IFM. So IFM's first course is Applied Functional Medicine in Clinical Practice, AFMCP. The people who come to take that course are primarily doctors. Many of them are still in their hospital system as employees for large medical practices within huge medical conglomerates. And as part of taking that FMCP course, they are asked to do an elimination diet. It's voluntary, but it's really helpful. If you're going to become a functional medicine doctor and recommending an elimination diet, it's helpful if you've gone through it yourself. Well, for many people, doctors included, this is challenging. Why? You have to give up coffee. You have to give up chocolate, no red meat, no gluten, no dairy, no soy, no corn. And there's a lot of questions about it. And so we had two groups. One group was paired with our graduates. These were health coaches, and they got 5 sessions of health coaching. They could work on the elimination diet or anything else, stress, for example, or sleep or hydration. And the other group was a waiting room control. So all they got was just a printed PDF, guides to the elimination diet. It answered all the questions in the guide about how to reintroduce foods, for example, and specifics in terms of specific ingredients, commonly asked questions. Should I eat this? Is it okay to eat that? And they were to go on this for 3 or 4 weeks. So when we analyzed the results, not surprisingly, the group that worked with a health coach was much more compliant. They stayed on the elimination diet. And those who reported more medical conditions on a medical symptoms questionnaire, actually their biomarkers were improved as well. So we just published that in Medicine, a peer-reviewed journal. And I think it's a perfect example because many of these doctors, they had never had a relationship like this before, where someone asked them, what do you want your health for? Yeah. What's your end goal? What gives you the most joy in life? And, you're here, it's suggested that you go on the elimination diet, which would be similar to a recommendation you might get from a doctor. Oh, I suggest you stop eating gluten, sugar, dairy, whatever it might be. And then they're left like, well, how do I do that? Or am I ready to do that? Or perhaps the family isn't in agreement and my partner is going to be bringing home pizza and ice cream. And I don't think I have the willpower to resist that, for example. And so many of them, the coach would say, this has been suggested as part of your course. What are your thoughts about it? And then they might say, oh, I don't think I could ever give up my coffee. How am I going to function in the morning without my coffee? Or they might say, yeah, I'm ready to go. Or they might say, I'd really rather just work on the stress in my life and run, the stress from working in this hospital system. I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. I can't get all of this charting done at the end of the day. I'm up till midnight. And so it's this relationship that is what we call client-centered. I want to say it's client-centered because coaches are not licensed, so they don't have patients. They're not medical practitioners. Therefore, we say clients. If they're working for a doctor, they may have the doctor's patients. And so this relationship that is totally client-centered, where people feel heard, appreciated, valued, not ashamed to bring up any topic. They might be embarrassed. They might have a question about this diet and they think, oh, that's a dumb question. My doctor will, or I'll be annoying the doctor if I ask too many questions. He's busy or she's busy, and I'll be taking up too much of their time. And so with the coach, they have a lot of time. They have the freedom because the coach is constantly saying, any other questions? What thoughts do you have about this? Or how do you feel? about? What's your reaction now? You've been on this program for a week since I last met. What went well? What can we celebrate? And so it's a very special relationship.
Sure. And I love that because it's such a powerful way to create the shifts you want. One question I get a lot from my friends, sometimes I'll say, you know what, I need to achieve my goals and I want to hire this coach to help me get there. We're going to talk about macros and these different things. And my friends will say, you teach health. And like, we all know everything. We know how to eat a good diet. Why would you hire a coach? Like, I don't need someone to tell me when I already know what I'm supposed to be doing it. I'm just not doing it. And I always think to myself, yeah, we know what we should be doing it, but if we're not doing it, then obviously we need some support somewhere along the way. And so sometimes I'll have colleagues who are health coaches and I'll say, look, I need someone in my life because just the sheer busyness of life and the lifestyle I'm choosing to live, it's a choice, but the lifestyle I'm living with the work pace means that I need someone alongside. I need support in different phases or different seasons. And so when it comes to that question of like, we all know what to do, the information's there on how to be healthy. How do you explain the importance of health coaching and the approach that's taken?
Sure. So Mark Ferries, who teaches at University of Texas, talks a lot about the intention behavior gap. It's often very big. It's like, why can't we all just do it? We're not the Nike slogan. Yeah. And we often start out the beginning of the week, the beginning of the day with really good intentions. Okay, today I'm going to get out and I'm going to get my 10,000 steps in. Okay, today I'm going to not eat after dinner. And then at the end of the day, I just didn't make it. I looked at my step counter and I only got to 2,000 steps. What's wrong with me? Or I gave in and I had a real craving while I was watching TV and my partner was eating something. Before you knew it, I was eating right along with them. And so now there's an emotional reaction, feeling demoralized. What's wrong with me? Why can't I follow this? And with a coach, there's so many things that happens that, first of all, it's setting you set the goal and you start very, very small. So maybe it's not the 10,000 steps. Maybe I'm going to get out and I'm going to walk around the block for 5 minutes. And maybe then I'm going to report back to my coach. Sure. Because I've committed to doing that. And accountability really helps. When you pledge to somebody that you're going to do something, you have their voice in your head or your own voice saying, yes, I made this promise. I'm going to do this. And so that helps a lot, to having somebody and with a coach, you can be completely honest, because we know that we tend to underreport with doctors. We often may feel rushed, or we feel like they're going to judge, or many people see the doctor. That's the authority figure. Yeah. Told me what to do, and I'm embarrassed, or I'm going to feel like I'm not a good person if I'm not compliant. Maybe they won't even want me as a patient anymore if I say this. And so they can be completely honest, and the coach will ask the right kind of questions. It's not psychotherapy, but it's very close, where a person may, through questioning, recognize, this is the self-sabotage. This is a pattern that I have been reenacting over and over and over again. And so the coach, by asking those questions, will help that individual arrive at that aha moment. I'm going to not focus on the past. I'm going to focus on my future self. Right. And they often may refer to the gap and the gain, which comes from the legendary coach Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. There's a book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan called The Gap and the Gain. And so the coach will lead to that question. So if you are, at the end of the day, thinking you fell short, you're in the gap. But what are you in the gain about? Even thinking about being in that contemplation, thinking about doing that is still a gain. And now it's going to the next step. And how can I support you in going to the next step? And maybe let's break down that next step into tinier and tinier pieces so that it is achievable. So before this recording, I like to do push-ups every day. And so I didn't have much. Well, I can do 10. Or, okay, now I got through 10, I'll do 10 more. Right. But it's starting really, really small. I can do one squat every time I'm waiting for my coffee to brew, as BJ Fogg talks about. And we use his tiny habits method, talking about really slowing down And so that it becomes a habit. And now you're not thinking about it where it's normal and enjoying the process, because so many people commit to these intentions. It's drudgery. And so if you see that, yeah, I'm going to get out and walk and it's going to feel so good. And maybe I'll listen to a podcast, something on Audible, and I'll really enjoy, or I'll call somebody and we'll walk and talk at the same time, or I'll feel the sunshine, or nature bathe. And so bringing joy into those intentions can be very, very important.
For sure. And you shared that you're a psychologist, and you mentioned in the range of psychotherapy. So what's interesting is oftentimes when we go to the doctor or the functional medicine doctor or any practitioner, we're asking for an answer. We're saying, what's wrong with me? And their job is to use tests and tools, physical, examination, and ascertain quickly what is the problem. And even in Ayurveda, we do that as well. When I do a private one-on-one consultation, I'm trying to ascertain quickly what is the issue. But right after you give someone that diagnosis, you're really saying, I believe that the problem is X or Y. It's autoimmunity, or it's, leaky gut. You're lacking in all these minerals and problems. I see high cholesterol. We need to see shifts, whatever the issues are. That's just a little prescription pad notification to you that you need to go make a change. But it doesn't at all actually give you the lifestyle plan, the implementation plan, the new diet that you have to magically adopt. I'm kind of complaining here because I get these diagnoses and I'm like, you want me to magically change what I eat to weird foods? Like someone would have to customize with those with me because they're so out of the norm. Create lifestyle shifts like you're talking about, more steps, hydration, these things. Whatever you're not doing that leads to the problem isn't going to be that easy for you to fix, because had it been easy, you would have just done it, right? We would have had the knowledge and done it. So it's interesting that you bring in this idea of psychology, because as an Ayurveda coach, Ayurveda lifestyle coach, I know that if I can't figure out the leverage point with people and I can't compel them, it's all mindset shifts that have to slowly be made over time with changing habits. It's a very slow process, but it's going to happen through the mind. And so I love that really you're saying practitioners and even physicians and doctors are taking your program because they know that to compel the patient or client to create the shifts, they kind of have to become very good coaches.
Yes.
Otherwise, you won't be able to create that shift in the body. And so how have you seen this coaching program? I'm imagining that this coaching program is better because it's really showing you the real tools you need to compel the shifts that you want to see in the client and really hold space for them.
Yes. The difference, I believe, is that this journey, and in our program, it's 1 year, and I firmly believe you can't make shortcuts. You can't go to a program in 2 months and say, I'm a coach. Many people do, but the essence of coaching is not there. What is that? That is this personal transformation. We hear this over and over again from graduates. They went through the program. They work in cohort groups, small groups, 10 people, 12 people, and they're in that group for 2 hours, a couple of times a month, and they are practicing coaching and being coached. And that being coached, that is the essence, where you go through this personal transformation. How am I communicating with others? How am I taking care of myself? How am I expressing my strengths, as opposed to always focusing on how am I doing? What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? Because that's the medical system. Whether we're talking about psychology, where I had trained, it's all about what's wrong with you in the DSM diagnoses. And in medicine, arriving at that diagnosis, something is wrong, something is broken, and you need to be fixed. And this approach, the coaching approach, we incorporate positive psychology. How do you thrive? What strengths do you use to have a life well lived? And as a coach, with each encounter you have with a client, you are also transformed. Wow. And so it's not you as the teacher, but you say to your clients, we're learning together.
Right.
And they're listening to the story. That client has their own unique story. And as a coach, you have your own unique story. And it is putting those together to form an alliance that is therapeutic. And so while they are not therapists, and that means they don't diagnose, they don't treat psychiatric medical conditions, they're not doing psychotherapy. They're supporting emotional wellness. They're supporting people because when you feel heard, when you have somebody in your corner, when you realize that these feelings are normal, or especially, we have an explosion of anxiety and depression, and getting out and taking a walk or changing what you're eating, that's going to change your whole system, including your brain health. And so it is having that ally, having a guide, and feeling like you are in the driver's seat that is resulting in change taking place, as well as resilience, because we have setbacks. We can't do this perfectly. And realizing that you can't eat perfectly. And we have I think a huge issue where many people with orthorexia, where you're afraid to eat anything because you can see the problems with whatever it is. And there's so much conflicting advice. You can listen to one podcast and, kale is terrible. It's got oxalates. It'll kill you. And then you turn on another podcast and my 5 top superfoods, kale is up there. So, what do I do?
Right. Yeah. No, it's very challenging. Even I watch the level of health content online. There's a whole camp, carnivore diet. There's eat red meat only, eat steak all day with some salt and some water in life. And that's it. Then you've got the vegans and the vegetarians and there's always a middle ground, but it's challenging because our society is kind of built on what's the next new trend. But if it's our health, we can't just keep jumping on trends. That's not sustainable. And there's a big fear factor as well. I was teaching about that today in one of my classes. I was like, guys, we're scared of the water, the air, the EMFs, the Wi-Fi. Every time I walk in the kitchen, I'm like, well, that has appeal and that has that. And if I don't wash everything in baking soda or grow it myself, I'm going to be in trouble. So you run out of things to eat, and that defeatism can actually be the biggest part of the problem. And so rather than feeling defeated that everything is problematic, I love the idea of partnering with someone who's like there to encourage you, there to show you best practices, give you guidance. And so when it comes to the IFM coaching program that you built, my understanding is they get to learn the IFM programming as well.
Yes.
Because they're the perfect partnership for all the MDs, DOs, NPs, chiropractors, practitioner level who go through the program. Now you're the perfect support team because you know exactly how they're going to approach their patients.
1,000%. So our graduates speak the same language as the functional medicine doctors who trained with IFM. They had the same teachers. Our senior faculty, it's their senior faculty. We use their slide decks. What we do is modify it because this is for coaches. Many coaches have no training in healthcare. They've never had that background. Or many who did, they didn't do the deep dive there, or what the IFM curriculum is a very deep dive into biochemistry, for example, into medication recommendations. What's the dosage of a particular medication? Those aren't areas that are really in the health coach area. And so what we do add that is not in the IFM program is a very deep dive into psychology of eating, into mind-body medicine, and particularly in positive psychology. Okay. So positive psychology is, again, what's right with you? How do you help someone based on a strengths perspective? We ask questions like, what's strong with you, not what's wrong with you, as Dr. Robert Luby of IFM likes to say.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so true. It's interesting. It's like you've created this perfect partnership of people speaking the same language. I do meet a lot of people who end up having done other health coaching programs. And by the end of it, they're so confused. They can't coach. And that's been interesting to see because I'm like, what's your specialty? Do you make meal plans? And it's almost like I can tell that they've been told you can't really do much. And I'm like, well, that's not in service to you. Like, how come you're not just able to very clearly share what you're here to do? And that's just not true with IFM. From what I've seen, and I've been to the IFM conference, which was amazing, because it was created with this high standard in mind and to be kind of like the certifying body in the group that's leading the pack in terms of pioneering how we study and learn functional medicine. And I know there's a lot of other institutions. I have not found or met them yet. But because I knew Dr. Mark Hyman in 2003, That's when I met him. I know his ethos just from working in his proximity. And I know that IFM, as it's created, is to really create this opportunity for practitioners to learn a different way of practicing. And so I love that the health coaches get to also learn that wisdom and understand it, even maybe not to like that crazy biochemistry level, which I see sometimes when I go to A4M, I hear the doctors learning and talking, and I'm like, wow, the level of minutia and depth we can get into with anything is so fascinating. But that is their world, but that doesn't need to be the health coach's world. The health coach's world is very much the holding space.
Yes.
Yeah. So will you share some stories around, like, I love client stories, because a lot of times when I ask my practitioners these questions, they'll say a story or two that just highlights to you how powerful the work is. So will you share one or two stories of like rock star results with us?
Sure. So I'm going to share a story that has multiple rockstar results. Her name is Anandita, and she was in our first class. And she also knew Mark Hyman way back. And the way it happened was she was in Mumbai, and she had a young daughter who had very severe eczema. She'd been to doctors, nothing was working. And so Anandita came across Dr. Mark Hyman, and she took matters into her own hands. There were no health coaches then, no functional medicine doctors in India at the time. And she decided that she was going, the more she learned through basically Mark Hyman, I'm going to do experiment. I'm going to change her diet. I'm going to take her off gluten, dairy, and may have been a couple others as well. She looked at the reaction, and she saw her daughter was getting better. And then she saw an email came through from Dr. Hyman, and this was in like late 2015, 2016. It was talking about FMCA, that we had a first class launching to become a health coach. And so she said, why not? She was not in healthcare. She was in another field entirely. And so she took a chance. It was remote. So she was the only student in India, the only student in Mumbai.
Cool.
And she graduated 2016, and she became a health coach. Meanwhile, her doctor, treating her daughter, this dermatologist, was fascinated. She said, oh, maybe I'll start going through the training at IFM. And we can open a clinic together. In the meantime, Anandita wrote a book for children with eczema. She started a small business as a health coach, starting seeing people. And these were other parents who heard of her work. Now, they had children who also had very bad skin conditions, or others as well. They started to form a group. And fast forward to today, she has a very busy practice. She connects. There are now more functional medicine doctors in India. And Anandita has a podcast. I was a guest on it. And she is a rock star.
That's awesome.
And her daughter as well. And she has really helped so many people. But she started out that journey just helping one person, her daughter.
Sure. That's amazing. That's fantastic. That's so cool. I love hearing stories like that. They're always so illuminating of what the process is, what the path is, and how we can shift things. And the thing is, there's so many health conditions. And what I've noticed is women, moms, oftentimes have to become health warriors on their journey, because the children nowadays, inevitably, you're going to have typically one serious health condition out of every household, is what I see the trend to be. And so I can see how this can be a beautiful way to go deep dive and learn and improve our skill set, so that we're more supported in creating those shifts within our own household, then within our community, and then beyond.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a ripple effect. So that one word from learning, coming across Mark Hyman, and now thousands of people, many children, have now gotten better because of that.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. And what other exciting things do you have on deck coming up?
Sure. So we were very excited about, we have an annual international conference from IFM, and we had FMCA always are there. We have meetings, we have meet and greets, and it's an opportunity for many of our graduates who are coming to interact. We want to tell the doctors about the benefits of having a coach, being a coach. I am in the middle of writing a new book about health coaching, about how health coaches really can be the new primary care. And I'm not saying they're taking the place of primary care doctors, but medicine as lifestyle first. And with the doctor shortage growing in terms of primary care, particularly, there's so much that health coaches can do to help people be that bridge of communication between them and the medical system, being the advocates. And we are also going to be launching some new courses. Group coaching is a growing field, and we also have a vibrant alumni program. We are continuing to match our graduates with trainees at IFM to offer those trainees those sessions of coaching. That's our career advancement initiative. And we are also launching a new program in functional nutrition and nutritional psychology, which we're very, very excited about. So we have our faculty signing up for that. Some of the biggest names in the nutrition field. We're proud to welcome them to our faculty. Many are already on our faculty. And so we are proud to be teaching this in terms of how coaches can stay up to date on the latest cutting edge research in functional nutrition and nutritional psychology, which I believe is so important. It's not just what you eat, but how you eat and who you're eating with, or whether you're eating alone, and your culture, your ethnicity, so many influences on our food choices and eating behaviors.
Sure. Let's talk about that for a second. Nutritional psychology. It's not even a phrase I've heard before, and I've typically heard of everything, I thought. So nutritional psychology in the sense of, does it also encompass how you feel about what you eat when you eat it?
Yes.
Because a lot of times I hear people share things like, I ate name the food. And I tell them, don't poison the food as you eat it. Like when you sit to eat something, don't berate yourself about the food as you're consuming it. Consume it, knowing full well, oh, this doesn't fit my meal plan, but I'll be great later. Or it's okay to sometimes have fun. Like there's a difference, I think, between justifying not awesome behavior when it comes to food versus poisoning the food as you're going to eat it. Like don't poison it as it goes down. So I'm curious, how do you explain it?
Yeah, so I used to teach many courses in the psychology of eating. Many people narrow that down thinking it is emotional eating. And yes, we have every range, if the gamut of emotions around food. Food is so basic. Food is like a Rorschach test as well. Rorschach's, which I gave thousands as a psychologist, and it is how you interpret something. So somebody might look at a plate of pasta and they're going to say, yum, yum, oh my gosh, I can't eat this. So delicious. Or they're going to think of their Italian heritage, pasta visual, and it is like they're going to picture their mama and their grandma in the kitchen, and so it's warm memories. Somebody else may look at it and it's gluten and it's got dairy and I'm going to feel sick afterwards, or I'm going to get fat from this. It's got too many, whatever it is, they have their own interpretation. Somebody may dig in with other people. Others may feel like they'll appear gluttonous if they finish it all. So many issues that come up. It's how we eat. It's why we're eating. It is who is eating with us.
Sure.
And that might be a person physically with us, and we want food as community, meal sharing meals, but it might also be our ancestors, our family of origin, messages we received. I was a picky eater. I'm a healthy eater. The good eater is fine until you start eating too much, and then you're the overweight child, and that might not. Then you get messages about that. The picky eater might end up be picky in a lot of other ways. The difficult problem child. We express rebellion through food. People go off to college. They come home to their meat eating family, I'm a vegan, or the opposite. Now, people who were raised vegan, they come home and I just love that ribeye, and it's their way of expressing their individuality. they're growing up and they're becoming independent of their families. Your friends, we tend to eat the way our friends eat. And so and particularly our culture, our ethnicity, the holidays. Holidays are all around food for many people. I was asking my husband, why are you eating this? What's the Super Bowl? It's like it's food is it's paired with these occasions. We go to a baseball game. We have peanuts and Cracker Jacks, as the song says. So they're tied in together. And so the food is celebration. But what happens when you now have food restrictions and you're told, you're sensitive or you have issues with these particular foods? And so there's a lot of issues, a lot of conflict, a lot of how do we resolve that? And the coach can really play a big part in being cognizant, having people share those experiences, talk about them, and then come to terms with how they're going to navigate all of these subtle nuances.
I think that's a big deal because I do see a lot of people struggle with eating the new way they know they should eat or could eat for ideal health, and then their surroundings. So I'll give you some examples. I'm Indian and I grew up Indian vegetarian. When I go home, my mom's always like, Shivani, just have a little paratha, like just a little. And I look at her like, that's just a little poison. Please understand that what you are trying to offer me, of course, I would like to eat fresh, hot, buttery paratha with my children. But I have a hard line called I'm gluten intolerant. Not my choice. It's just my body. I will hand feed this with love to my kids, but I have carried my tortillas with me and that's what I have to eat. And so it's just interesting when you butt up against those lines, how you have to have the right perspective, the right attitude around your health to kind of work with people. I was just in India and I had to do the same thing. I said, guys, thank you so much. I will not eat gluten, but I flew in with my bread. I flew in with everything I needed and thank you, but I can't partake in the foods of our culture. They don't suit me in a lot of ways. And so, there's a lot there. And the holidays too. I always make sure when I entertain, if there was someone like me, they could navigate the whole function, gluten-free, healthy, with fiber, with nutrition. Because I would love if people would honor me that way. And it's not always the case, and that's okay. I'm not asking everyone to accommodate all my stuff, but I know I want to be able to eat well at everything. So why wouldn't I create like that path for people?
Yes.
So I love that you're covering that because it's probably going to become even more of an important topic over time, because as a society, we're seeing these horrible trends towards chronic inflammatory diseases. And we're learning as a society that the current food pyramid is 100% wrong. And if we can just shift diet and lifestyle, we can win. But it's almost like you're going against the tides. You're going against the way food is marketed to us. You're going against, like you said, cultural, family, heritage, holidays and trends and tendencies. So it's almost like to buck tradition and not be villainized for it. You don't have to, but you can choose to partner with someone who supports you on that journey.
Yes, absolutely. It's so challenging. And I have lived long enough now. I've seen every trend come and go. I raised my kids vegan. I was the fat-free craze. I remember pulling cheese off their pizzas and they just ate the crust. Looking back, I think, what was I thinking? And also that it's possible then. I think the biggest thing we need to keep in mind is to not lose humility. Humility is a character strength. It's to be in awe of what you may not know. And so I was for a long, long time making these huge loaded smoothies. And what would I put in there? Almond milk. And I would have big, bags of kale and raw spinach and lots of berries. And, this is great. And then a couple of things happened. I started wearing a CGM and saw that my blood sugar would go sky high after drinking this, because I probably needed to be chewing all of the fruit as opposed to inhaling it as a liquid. And the other thing I found was that and now there's a lot being written about oxalates. And I was doing some food sensitivity. Wait, I'm sensitive to almonds and high in oxalates, or spinach, or if it's not organic and you're putting loads of those into a juice or a smoothie, is that good for you? So people who are holier than thou, thinking that they're eating the better food, or that smoothie is healthier than somebody else who might be having, I don't know, eggs or something, so judging that person, whereas really, is this really a health food? There's a book called Toxic Superfoods. So we can go to the extreme where 100%, all vegetables bad, there are people out there who are talking about this, about lectins and oxalates. And then, well, what do I eat? I can't eat vegetables. I can't eat fruit because they'll raise my blood sugar. I can't eat meat because, it's like, it's like.
And then you can't eat processed protein either. You have to eat meat. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do, people? Please.
Right. So that's where, a health coach can come in to help you personalize that it's not one size fits all. And you are the ultimate arbiter. You're the food detective. And how do you feel when you eat this? And what if you removed it for a time? And would you feel different if you added it back? Then it's one way of knowing or following biomarkers as well. But it's challenging and maybe, or in terms of having some balance, unless you have, sensitivities to or food reactions to really have that balance. Because I see people screw up, particularly for their kids. All the time, where they become so rigid that the stress that's created is probably more deleterious than if you'd eaten the food, because I did that. I was so guilty of it in terms of family. Like people my daughters would say like, oh, we couldn't go out to a restaurant with you because we know whatever we would look at that menu, terrorized, like whatever we choose, you're gonna make a face, and so.
Yeah, I'm laughing because that's me. I have like an agenda, and my agenda is nutrient density with nutrient variety, organic when possible, seasonal, and really that nutrient density matters. And the battle in my home is they want everything just frozen and fun, like whatever they can buy that's not fresh, homemade, and organic, they will reach for. So the negotiation is you get what you want, but I get what I want. And I'm pretty firm on my piece. And so I win maybe half the time. But I'll take my 50% win because at least I'm getting that much nutrition in. But it's so humbling.
It is. Yeah.
It's never easy. And then you also want to build sovereign, independent, confident humans. So you can't crush the spirit. It's an interesting mind game.
Yeah. We play out a lot of these conflicts over food. And particularly in adolescence, and when they go away to college, my daughters, my daughters sent me a picture of her first. She was on a date actually, and they went to a steakhouse, and she texted, or not texted, but she had the picture of, her first bite of steak. And it was, fast forward to today. And, I feel best having red meat in my diet after years of being a vegan and a raw vegan. I never knew I was so unhealthy until I stopped eating that way, and how nutrient deprived I was, especially raw vegan.
Yeah. And I've been to Hippocrates Health Institute here locally in West Palm Beach. I've stayed there with my family. I think it's an incredible place to detox and learn about these concepts. But I think it's so important, like raw veganism, but I think it's so important that we understand intuitively and through functional medicine, what actually do we need to be doing to have nutrient dense bodies? And I asked that question of my functional medicine team recently. I was like, guys, how long can I run with these deficiencies? At this point, just tell me the diet. Like, do I have to eat meat? I will shift. And no one wanted to say it to me straight, but they pretty much were like, something has to change. And so I think that will require real coaching because it's such a huge shift. And when you were speaking earlier about food and non-fat, some of us have trends from the past that are so indoctrinated in us. They feel nearly impossible to break. So I have met multiple health coaches who we were talking about food, and I said, I just don't eat fat because I know how to cook non-fat. And they said, that's the issue right there. You are asking your brain to give you all the octane you want to teach and learn and function, and you want to write a book, everything you're doing for the world, but you're not giving your brain any fat. And so the coaching I require is actually, please eat fat. Where else can we fit in fat? Can you please eat fat at 4 o'clock? Can you please add fat to lunch? Literally, that is the homework, because it's so counterintuitive to what I learned. Even though I teach health, I preach health, I love health, that indoctrination was so strong, it takes consistent coaching to break.
Yes, and imagining fat, part of that coaching is imagining fat as a friend, not a foe.
Yeah.
And how would you visualize that internally? What would that look like?
Right.
And translating it into and breaking it down, like, where did that come from?
Sure.
Where were its origins? When did you first have that message? And then perhaps that message was flawed. And realizing, and again, it's that humility. It's a sense that, but it's an emotional connection too. So it's a visceral reaction against fat, and looking at, well, what were the associations with fat? Did you see fat as unhealthy, as fat as getting fat, having too much body fat, for example? Many people experience that. And then looking at, having, can I do an experiment with adding some fats? Like you said, when could I add it? Where could I add it in my diet? And could I eat it slowly enough to savor, the taste of it? And, any good associations. And maybe that is where the culture comes in, bringing back from your culture, what are some early memories of loving fat?
Right. Yeah. I eat it now and my body goes, thank you. I tune into how the feeling is. My whole body's like, thank you again. Thank you. And so it's so interesting if we can retrain ourselves to love the things that we believed weren't good for us, but are actually the things we need most through coaching, then we can achieve those levels of health and vibrant health that we want. That's always my goal. I teach Ayurveda from the standpoint of, let's bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment. Let's bring everything into connection. Let's eat intuitively. Let's sign up for our maximum potential. And Ayurveda is just one more toolkit along the way that can help you get there.
That is so right.
So will you share with our audience today any last words that you want to share about coaching, health coaching, what you've created? Dr. Hyman, anything that you want to share as your last message today?
Yeah, coaching is the process of taking you from where you are to where you want to be. And so, as somebody who can work with a coach, is thinking about working with a coach, where are you now? Where would you like to be? Because it is based on your future self and designing something for your future self so you can thrive. And for someone thinking about becoming a health coach, it's also, where are you now? Are you in a job where you're feeling burnt out, where you're feeling like, I can't picture continuing to do this another 10 years? Where do you want to be? And how can you be working towards something where you will be making a big impact of the world? You will be helping somebody get to where they want to be, but you will be getting to be where you want to be in the process. And so you will be helping people change their lives. You will be changing your life as well, because that process of being a coach is transformational for you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And how can people find you and sign up and experience and learn about this? Because my goal is always for all of us to transform our health. And I know that we need a world full of Ayurvedic practitioners, health coaches, functional medicine practitioners. I'm a big believer that this is the area where we need the most growth and understanding. And I love that I see so many practitioners in the direct primary care, MDs, DOs, so many practitioners are diving into functional medicine to learn it.
They are.
And I just think that this is so beautiful that you've built this coaching program to run right alongside it so that people can have both on their team to winning at their health. So how can people find you?
functionalmedicinecoaching.org. They can go to our website. They can get information. They can follow on Instagram, Functional Med Coach, or me personally at Dr. Sandi. That's Sandi on Instagram.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you, Shivani. It was great talking with you.
Great talking to you too.
Thanks for joining me for this episode. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for patients with pain and inflammation. www.fusionaryformulas.com. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta. For more, visit shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Click the follow button or subscribe in any of the apps that you use. That's all I've got for you on the Fusionary Health podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health and achieve vibrant health starting today.